What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Inkslasher, and today we're going to be looking at Archive. Archive is one of the brand new maps in DLC 2, and it's a really interesting one, and you'll see exactly what I mean the more I talk about the map. But if you guys didn't already know, I actually got flown down to LA by Activision to go play DLC 2 a little bit early so I could bring you guys some gameplay early. Now, Archive is essentially a museum. That's the layout of it, that's what it looks like, and what you're seeing here is a map that is nothing like pretty much any of the other maps in Infinite Warfare, and I think that needs a pretty solid description because that alone doesn't really make any sense. So in Infinite Warfare, most of the maps are pretty vertical, and what I mean by that is by using your jetpack, you're able to get up on ledges in different areas to actually get vantage points on people. In this map, it's not the case whatsoever. This is not a vertical map in the slightest. In fact, it's more designed like an old boots on the ground map, and I was just simply not used to that when playing this map. And this map I did absolutely horrible on. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think I dropped like a 2 KD, but the rest of the maps I was actually able to build up some score streaks and do incredibly well on them, and this map I just couldn't do well on. And I think it's because it plays so differently than any other map in the game. And is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily think so, especially considering a lot of people really like maps that can be boots on the ground. And the reason why I say this map is so not vertical is because it's not. There's nowhere you can jump up. There's no real ledges you can get onto. There's a few walls you can jump over outside, but that's pretty much it. So that's one reason why I think this map plays a little bit differently. The second one is that it's not really a 3-lane map. It somewhat is, but there's many different ways and routes of getting to the same area. So what I found a lot is, especially inside the actual museum itself, whenever I was there was like 3 ways to get into every single room. So you constantly had to be watching your back. If you ask me, it's more designed like a Call of Duty Ghost map than it is an Infinite Warfare map. And the one thing I will say though is the color scheme on this map is awesome. Just like pretty much the rest of the maps in this game, I think the one thing they did with their map designs that's absolutely excellent is the way every single map looks, the color scheme on it, especially when you get in the museum itself and look at like the shark and stuff. The colors just really do pop in those areas. That being said, it's very hard to do well inside of the museum on this map. In fact, if I was to give you a strategy to excel on this map, it would simply be stay outside and try flanking people as much as possible without going into the middle of the museum. Literally, the middle room in the museum, there's 4 ways to get in that room, and it seemed like every single which way there was an enemy in every other door. That being said, though, with that strategy of trying to stay outside of the museum, there really isn't that much space outside of the museum. I would say probably 75 to 80% of the map actually takes place inside the museum itself. So what does that mean? It means that aerial score streaks are not going to do very well on this map whatsoever. So you want to be using things more like sentry guns, your vultures, and maybe if you're feeling really fancy, an RC8 or an AP3X. But I definitely wouldn't suggest a Warden, a Thor, or anything like that on this map, just because so much of the map takes place inside of a building. And the interesting thing about this map is this is really the only map in DLC 2 that the majority of the map takes place inside buildings. And I think that's actually kind of rare for Infinite Warfare. I think generally speaking, for most of the maps, there's a large majority of them that actually take place inside, whereas DLC 2, that is not the case at all whatsoever. As you're going to see throughout the next 2 videos where we look at the other maps, most of those maps are outdoors, whereas this map predominantly takes place indoors with very little height difference between the rooms indoors. And that's why I say it plays very different than the other maps in Infinite Warfare. There's very little places you can use your jetpack to get to and anything along those lines. So if you're looking to excel on this map, I think there's a few strategies you can use to really do so, and most of them are going to be about your weapon choices. I find that this is a map where snipers really aren't going to do that well. On top of that, if you're going to use weapons, you're going to want to use pretty short-range weapons. So SMGs are going to do very well, and short-ranged assault rifles. So for example, I would definitely recommend weapons like the Karma, the FHR, or specifically the RPR Evo I found was probably the best weapon for this map. On top of that, if you're going to use an assault rifle because you want to stay outside a lot, because the outside area on this map is going to be a little bit longer ranged gunfights, weapons like the K-Bar or maybe even the XEON are going to do extremely well, simply because they're better at short range, and that's what you're really looking at for this map. However, Shotguns are viable on this map, however, I think SMGs will just reign supreme a little bit over top of those shotguns. That's why I suggest those. So what are my opinions on this map? So I'm going to be a little bit biased simply because I did not do well on these maps, and the main reason I didn't do well is I'm just simply not used to maps like this. This isn't designed like other maps we've seen in Infinite Warfare. It doesn't play into the use of jetpacks whatsoever. And if I was to compare this to any maps, it would have to be to maps in Call of Duty Ghost, because if you remember, Call of Duty Ghost was actually made by Infinity Ward as well, and a lot of its maps were kind of designed in the same way, wherein there were many different ways to get to the same areas on the map. A lot of the maps in Call of Duty Ghost were not designed like 3 lanes or the capital H with a line down the middle kind of maps. They were designed in a way where you had many different routes to get to the same area, and because of which, I found myself getting shot in the back quite frequently. And this map is exactly that. So it's a map you really have to watch your back on quite frequently. And because of that, I just wasn't used to it. And I found myself either getting shot in the back or getting turned around and not necessarily knowing where I was on the map. But part of that is just simply inexperience of playing the map and not being used to it. And by no means does this mean the map is bad. In fact, I think it's a pretty good map. I'm just not used to this type of map. Also, the next 2 maps that we're going to be looking at are probably 2 of the best maps in the entire game. So to compare this map to them, it's not even fair, because if we were talking about any other map in the game, I'd be saying the next 2 maps are better. So I'm really stoked to show you those, but I have to wait until tomorrow to show you them. But like I said, I'm really excited to show you guys that gameplay, because those maps are really, really cool. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about this map. Based on the gameplay you're seeing and the walkthrough of the map that I showed you, what do you think of this map? I think people are actually really going to enjoy this map, as like I said, it kind of does play more of like a boots on the ground type of game style. And I think a lot of people like to see that in their maps. So I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, it would be fantastic if you could hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We have more DLC 2 content coming throughout the week, so stay tuned for that. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow, and until next time, peace out.